So I just finished filling 100 microgreens trays using my DIY tray filling station. Let's take a look and see how it works. So a few years ago, I saw a blog post by Modern Grower, and essentially they had designed a tabletop tray filling station. It was essentially a large wooden box that they had made out of plywood, and on that it was at a slight angle, and they had a metal grate so that you could fill the trays and any excess soil just went back into the wooden box. The issue I had in trying to build that myself was that I am not a carpenter. I am not very handy with tools and woodworking. And then also I've had a hard time sourcing the same metal grate they had. I think the person who had built that had just had scrap metal on their farm. So it wasn't easy for me to source the components and build them myself. So I took that same concept of filling trays, having excess soil fall back into the bin, and keeping a somewhat tidy, clean area while you're filling microgreens trays. But I've done that with readily available components. All of this stuff is stuff that you can buy on Amazon or at a hardware store like Home Depot or Lowe's. And essentially this whole system can be built for under 150 bucks. And if you tweak it to your own design and materials you already have available, you can probably build it for way cheaper. But let's take a look and I will show you the basics of the components and then we'll dive in. So let me turn it around. So what we have here is we have just a basic furniture dolly so that we can spin, rotate. We can move this around our small little foyer that we do our tray prep in. Then we have two totes. These are just 50 or possibly 55 gallon totes from Home Depot. Lowe's has similar products. You can probably find something similar on Amazon. And essentially the bottom one is just there to give me height, to have the top one full of soil at working level. If you really wanted to prep your soil in advance, you could fill the bottom one, get it all broken up, fill the second one, and when the second one empties, you just swap them around. If you're doing a lot of trays, that might be a viable option. Next, we move in, and just like they had the grate on the blog post one I had seen, this is a oversized cooling rack for cookies. I just measured the the width of the tote, and then I was able to find on Amazon one that was wide enough. You can see here that I do have two clamps on here. This is just to hold the grate in place. If you just set it on top and you have heavy trays and soil and things are moving, the grate will continually fall into the soil and dump out what you're working on. Then I tried just one clamp to start, and what would happen is it would, when it gets too spread out with soil, this would fall in and cause a mess. So I just clamp it in place. Then I have my trays. So again, I have a tray with holes, tray with no holes to act as a reservoir. I like to pre-bundle my sets of trays. And then next we have this is a 1 gallon scoop. So a gallon is approximately 3.8 liters. And in general, microgreens trays, to get about an inch of soil, it requires about 3 liters of soil. So in this instance, I have a little extra so that I can guarantee that I only have to scoop once. Because if I don't have enough soil, then I have to scoop twice, and here I am actually a little short, and it just creates extra motion. Also, you can see I use the side of the scoop, and that levels the soil, so I can do everything with one hand. And then once we're done with that, we just move it onto our stack of trays that are done. So as you can see, it's all pretty simple stuff. There's no construction required. And again, you can build this for under $150 as this exact setup. And again, you can possibly do it for even cheaper. So as you can see, there's lots of pros to using this system. Essentially, you can prep your trays and it's not quite as messy. If you have a large enough scoop, you can ensure you get enough soil in the tray in one scoop. You can also use the scoop to level the soil. And again, this system really just allows us to level the load, meaning We can take things that aren't critical for planting day and do them ahead of time so that planting day goes much faster. One other benefit is that this allows us to remove any measuring. I used to use a 3-liter pitcher, measure the soil exactly, and then level it and tamp it. This allows us to just use the edge of the tray as a guide. We fill it, scrape it level, and it's done. So let me just take a second and talk about how I used to fill microgreens trays. First of all, I used to use 2-inch trays, and that's what I was recommended when I first started growing. And what I would do is I would only fill them with 3 liters of soil, so 1 inch, so I wasn't filling them all the way, but that required me to measure precisely the amount of soil that I needed, level the soil with my hand, and then tamp it flat. And I would often do that by doing it on planting day. So if I was planting 28 trays at a time, I would put all my 28 empty trays out. I would walk around dragging the heavy bin of soil with me, and then scooping, leveling, tamping all in one go. And I would go all the way around the table, and then I'd have to go around and plant all the microgreens and then go around again and stack them all up. So it was a lot of wasted motion, and it just really drew out the planting day time. So now what we do is we plant on Fridays, but we prep trays and we measure our seed at least a day before, if not earlier in the week, just so that when planting day is here, everything's ready to go. We get in, we get out, we get the work done. So right now we're gonna break up the bale before we put it in the bin. So what I like to do, and again, do this at your own risk, don't sue me if you fall and break your neck, but I like to stand up here and kind of massage it loose with my feet. You can do this with 1 foot if you want, but I don't get quite as much weight on there to break it up. Turn it over, do the side. Essentially, I like to do all 4 sides, breaking up as much as I can. And then finally, it's ready to put in the bin. And we'll cut it up, and I'll show you how I break it up and get rid of any clumps. All right, so now that we broke up the bale inside the bag on the ground, we're ready to put it in the bin, and I'll show you how I break it up even further to get rid of any remaining clumps. These bales are quite heavy, so this isn't super ergonomic for employees and such. But since I'm doing the work myself, I can do it how I want. So cut across the top, cut vertically on one side, on the other. And I like to break up the bale. Now we're just gonna shake it out of the bag. And discard. So it's pretty well broken up, but there are still some large clumps in here. So what I like to do, spread it out. Then I just have a standard drill, and then this is a like a drywall or paint mixing paddle. You can get it at Lowe's or Home Depot, any hardware store. And essentially, I just like to work through and mix up and break up any clumps. So we'll do that real quick. All right, there we go. Now the soil is broken up and ready to go. I'm going to pop back on the oversized cookie grate, clamp it into place. I'll grab some trays. Here's 14 trays right now. I like to do stacks of 14 because I have two 6-foot tables I plant on, so that allows me to do 28 trays. So essentially I do stacks of 14. One thing that I do like to do is I kind of set the grate a little further to the left as I'm right-handed. And that gives me more space on this side to scoop and move the soil, but yet a little bit of space over here on the left for any extra soil to fall off. And again, I clamp it in place, the rack, because sometimes when the bin is full of soil, it kind of bows out, and I used to only clip on one side, and then the grate would kind of fall through. Found 2 cheap clamps out of the way, makes it super easy. So what I'm going to do here is take a large scoop, going to fill it there. Again, we generally aim for about 3 liters of soil. Using this method, you don't have to measure, you just fill and scoop, and here you can see we have a tray that is filled. I'm going to put it over there with my other ones. Again, you can wheel your station as close to wherever you're going to be putting your filled trays to reduce any more motion. But then it's just a matter of cranking away. And I don't tamp the trays, I stack them, and because I'm stacking them in stacks of 14 and then ultimately stacks of 28, the weight of them compresses. The only thing I will do is at the end of at the end of a stack of trays, I will take an empty tray and push down just so the top few get compressed as well. 1 bale of ProMix will fill about 50 to 60 trays depending. You know, some get compressed a little more than others. So 1 bale fits in here. So essentially every 50 to 60 trays that I'm filling, I will have to redo filling with the bale. Again, the system is a 2-bin system, mostly just to get extra height. I'm 6 foot tall and this is a pretty good workspace. If you're on the shorter side, you might want to develop a different base for this so that you're not like reaching up so high to fill your trays. And again, if you do too many trays high, it'll collapse the rack, the grate, and also it just makes it harder to work at that height. So we'll do a couple more. One thing I want to point out is you can see another benefit of this scoop is that it has a long flat edge. What I used to do was I had a 3-liter pitcher. Not only was that not great because I'd have to scoop twice most of the time to get enough soil in there, I would have a metal clipboard that I would run across the top and level. So this makes it so that I can do everything with one hand without picking up and setting a bunch of things down. Another thing I didn't mention about when I broke up the soil with the drill, I was previously fertilizing my soil by mixing in dried Green, which is a powder, but I just found working with it was super dusty, and I would sprinkle it on top of the broken up bale, and then when I did the drill, that would kind of mix it throughout the soil. I recently switched to using a hose end fertilizer, and I'll do a quick video on that a different day, just so you can see. It makes it so that I don't have to premix a diluted ocean solution. I can just go ahead and add the ocean solution to the reservoir, and the flow of the water pre-measures it as I water my microgreens. So fertilizing doesn't take any more time than it does to water on a normal day. And there we go. And one other thing to note is that what I have here for trays is actually a set of 2 trays. So the first one inside is a tray with holes, and then below that is a tray without holes. So then when you put the one with holes inside the one without holes, the soil goes in here, and that's what we're filling up right now. Then when you put microgreens on top and water, what that allows you to do when it's under lights is to gently pull the 2 trays apart, and you can water in between. And then that way you're bottom watering, and through the holes, the roots of the microgreens will soak up any water or nutrient solution. And then that allows you to keep moisture off the canopy of the plants, because the leaves don't need water, the roots need the water. There you go. So that's my quick and easy microgreens tray filling station. It saves me a lot of effort, a lot of moving. It allows me to batch a bunch of trays before planting day on days when it's not so slow. If you want to build your own version, you can check out all the components are linked in the description below. And if you want to learn more about growing microgreens, check out my playlist. It's essentially a free course, which is a workshop I did on how to sell your microgreens before you grow them. So check that out here.